Fantastic. Okay, good morning to everybody. Thank you so much for joining as we jump back into Likutei Moharan, a brand new week, B'siyata D'Shmaya, from very cold and rainy and dark London. We're going to do our best to bring some light, Be'ezras Hashem. Today's shir is sponsored by R Klein, Nishmas's parents, Rivka, Bryndel, blessed to be Simcha, and Ya'akov ben Yisha'Yahu, the Neshama Sherav and Aliyah. Also sponsored anonymously B'schus Shidduchim for Klal Yisrael's singles. B'siyata D'Shmaya, we continue with Torah Lamed Aleph, and I believe that we are on page Mem Dalid. And just to do a very quick recap, Torah Lamed Aleph is in part Lashon Rabbeinu. That's the first part of it, and it's very, very dense and packed with information, a little bit difficult to follow. And Rav Nassan, like we said in the second part of the Torah, is going to flesh things out a little bit more. And the Rebbe was speaking really about how Emunah is the completion of everything, right? There are brachas that come down into the world as a result of tzedakah, and those brachas, good morning, those brachas are the 6 brachas and the 11 brachas, which the Rebbe explained correspond to the 6 pillars upon which Yeshayahu says that the whole Torah is founded, and the 11 that David HaMelech says the whole Torah is founded upon. And why are they missing one? Because 6 is really supposed to be the 7 planets. 11 is really supposed to be the 12 mazalas. The one that's missing is what Habakkuk reintroduces, which is Habakkuk ve'amidan al achas. That's that one point of completion with Sadik be'emunasai yichya. He reveals the level of Emunah. And Emunah, is the completion of everything. It's the bechina of Shabbos. Shabbos is the aspect of Shemesh, and that's the light of the sun that's able to illuminate all of the brachas that are missing by reconnecting everything to its ultimate source. But ultimately, the only way that we can have Emunah is through the aspect of bris, and that was tzadik be'emunasa yichya. Right? In order to have Emunah properly, we need to have the bechina of tzaddik. Tzaddik is mandanata brisai always, because in tight tzaddik is always bris. And therefore, a person needs to have this aspect. And we said that this is also connected to a person's paths, a person's journeying, which is going to be affected by the mazalas, but ultimately the mazalas are still affected by a person's engagement with bris, and we brought a bunch of ramazim to that effect. And then what we were discussing on Friday is the aspect of Avraham and Eliezer, which is the concept of bris ilah, the elevated upper concept of bris, and the bris tata, which in the context of Torah Lamed Aleph, even though in Yudah Aleph rather, we learned about them in slightly different terms. Over here, it meant the upper bris is kedusha, that's shmiras habris, and the lower bris is shmiras halacha. And in Rabbi Nachman's terminology, that's tzaddik and lamdin. And a person, the Rebbe told us, has to have both. A person needs to be working on both of these things, to be a tzaddik and a lamdin, which cover the whole spectrum of the Jewish tradition. It has to be the aspect of purity, but it also has to be the aspect of halachic knowledge and care and concern. And we learned a few ramazim about that. And then we learned ultimately about the midah of chesed. Because the midah of chesed is, said the Rebbe, from the Zohar Kadosh, the Ijra Rabbah, chesed miskala bepuma da'ama. That's the aspect of the libuna, right, the moichin, that aspect of the zera that reveals itself in the mouth, so to speak, of the bris. And that's Avram Avinu, because Avram Avinu was Rosh L'Nimolim, so he represents the ultimate tzaddik. He represents the Indian of bris, who is sitting, like the Gemara tells us, outside the Pischa de Gehenna and making sure that anybody with a bris doesn't get in, because Avram is Rosh L'Nimolim. And that's the aspect of Rosh L'Ma'aminim, because we said that bris is connected to Emunah, but Habakkuk v'amidan al achas v'tzadik be'emunasa yichya. And so the concept of bris, tzadik, is connected to Emunah. That's why Abraham Avinu is both Rosh L'Nimolim and Rosh of Emunah, Emunim, Maminim. And Mamela, when you have both together, so we said Shabbos is the concept of the completion of the brachas, because it allows all of the brachas from HaKadosh Baruch Hu to flow down as a result of connecting all the channels and conduits to their source. And once that happens, then chesed flows. Memela Avram Avinu is the midah of chesed, because chesed is nizgala b'puma da'ama, and that's what Avram Avinu represents, the midah of tzaddik, be'emunasai, and therefore yichya is able to channel down chesed. And then, this is what we ended off with, when chesed is revealed, so because chesed is ahava and ishtoikukus, it's love and it's yearning, what that does is it puts nikudas, it puts vowels, or like they call them, at least in my son's school here, helpers, to the letters of the Torah. And the Rebbe says the nekudas are the bechina of nefesh, and the ois is the concept of the guf. And when you put the vowels to the letters, it brings them to life. There's tenua, they're able to move. And we said, well, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world with a dibur. And if a person is not looking at the world through this lens, which is ultimately, like we've been learning in previous Torahs, a lens of hope, right? A lens of tikkun haklali, right? That everything's going to have a tikkun, that Hashem is running the world, and we don't make general statements to the detriment of reality, right? That aspect of tikkun haklali, Memela, what that really means is that we're putting vowels, we're putting nekudas to the letters of reality, and we're bringing it to life. We're going to learn more about that, but Ezra Hashem and Torah Nun Beis. But this is the aspect of putting nekudas to the letters, and we learned a number of psukim to back this concept up about the connection between the helpers to the soul and the letters, right? The nekudas to the soul and the letters to the body. One of which was a pasuk in SHIURIM, nekudas hakesef, and we said nekudas is in this context a reference to the nekudas, the vowels, and kesef doesn't mean a silver; it could also mean kisufin, right? And there's a connection between longing, yearning, and nekudas. And then the Rebbe also brought another pasuk, which is a pasuk in Tehillim, where the pasuk says nichsefa v'gam kalsa nafshi. So on a simple level, it means David says, my heart, my soul yearned and longed, right? But Rabbi Nachman says no, it's the yearning and the longing that creates nafshi. Nichsefa v'gam kalsa. That's what a nefesh is. Nefesh is brought into being, and we're going to learn more about this on Amud Beis when Rav Nassan takes over, maybe on the second half of the page, I think. That produces the concept of nefesh. So let's jump in to where we were. So we're at the end of a line. It's last two words, ulefia kisufim. And in accordance with the kisufim, on the upper left-hand column of page Mem Dalet Amud Aleph, Kain Nakudas. That's how the Nakudas will be. In Kaisef Ra, Nakudas Ra'im. If a person yearns for negative things, that's going to bring about negative Nakudas. So reality will move, but it'll move in the direction that a person wants. Like the Gemara says in Makkos, wherever a person wants to go, that creates the reality, that lays the foundation for a person to be able to get there. So the Rebbe says, yes, the letters of reality are just letters. How to pronounce them depends on what vowels you put to them. So if a person is kaisef l'ra, nekudas ra'im, that makes negative vowels. Then it starts from oisiz and is davkim lasas pulis rais, and then the letters of reality, which is just goylam, it's just there, it's material, is going to be manipulated in a negative way. But v'im kaisef lasha b'tshuva, this is what we ended off with last week. If a person yearns to do tshuva, then nasa nekudas tovos. And we said in Reish Pei Beis, Nekudas Tovos just means good points, right? That's the famous Torah from Rabbi Nachman. If you haven't learned it, really chayav, take a look at Reish Pei Beis, the famous teaching of Azamra, where the Rebbe says a person has to find Nekudas Tovos, right? But over there, it just means points of Tov. Here is the first time in the sefer that the terminology appears, but over here, it means something different. It's very specific. It isn't just Nekudas Tovos, points of Tov. It means good vowels. And the Rebbe says, how do you get good vowels? How do you get a holy nekudas? Through a yearning lush of b'tshuva. And b'pnimius, that's what the Rebbe says in Torah Reish Pei Beis. What are the nekudas tovos that you're finding in someone else? It's the realization that deep down inside, every Jew wants to do the right thing. It's that deep down, this person's yearning for tshuva. This person has millions of other tovos and yearnings. It's not really. That's just the external manifestation of a deep, deep internal desire to connect to Hashem. That manifests in a person apparently wanting to connect to everything but Hashem. That's Nekudas Tovos, because Nekudas Tovos, according to the Rebbe, are produced because of a yearning lush of b'tshuva. Very powerful. And that infuses the letters with holy good souls. And the letters move and they permutate together to be able to bring about positive things to happen in the world and one's life.
As it say, because of lush of b'tshuva, because of like the opposite, like I said before, because of the type. And then he says,
this is the ultimate type. The ultimate type. Tshuva kadma la'olam, right? It's the most important thing there is. Everything else type is just part of that, right? So this is the most definitive definition, the most fundamental definition of what kaisef l'tayv really means. Okay? But as davkim lasas pu'ulas tayvas. V'zeh, this is pshat in the pasuk in SHIURIM. Tayrei zav nasalach, make for yourself necklaces of gold. And the end of the pasuk is im nekudas hakesef, with silver sequins, silver points. So says the Rebbe, okay, but what's the Tayrei zav? Why are we making reference here to gold in the context of ket nekudas hakesef, which, like we said, is the yearning that produces these vowels that brings the letters to life? Can you use bizarre? Because it says in the Zohar Kadosh in Parshas Vayeshev, is erusa de zivuga misitra de tzafan. The desire to be intimate, the desire to be united, which is the concept of zivug, comes from the north. In Kabbalah, north is always the midah of Gevurah. South is the midah of chesed, which is why Avram is always traveling south, right? Halach v'nesayah hanegba. Because Avram Avinu is the midah of chesed. Why? Because chesed flows downward. Chesed is mayim, right? And so mayim is the concept of hispashtus. That's why same thing, right? The beard as opposed to hair on the top of the head, right? Because anything that flows downward is a manifestation of the midah of chesed. That's the concept of flowing from the mashpia to the mekabel. The one who's giving is above, the one who's being mekabel is below, and that flow is the flow of chesed. That's the concept of negba. North is pushing up, right? And heading northward is something different. That's the inyan of the hair on top of the head. That's the energy of Gevurah that holds back as opposed to allows to flow down. And so the Zohar Kadosh says the desire to be intimate, the concept of a zivug comes misitra de tzafin. It comes from the side, right, from the energy, from the manifestation of the energy of the north, which is the energy of Gevurah, because the whole inyan of the Yetzer Hara is only Gevurah, right? That's where the Yetzer Hara comes from. The Yetzer Hara is the manifestation of din. Hua Satan, hua Malach HaMavos, hua Yetzer Hara. And that's where it comes from, which is a positive thing. The Gemara says, right? We need that, otherwise there would be no children in the world. And then the pasuk in Iyah says, "Umitzafain zav yaseh." Gold is brought from the north. So gold, we see, is connected to the concept of north, which is interesting that the Rebbe brings that pasuk, because anyway we know that zahav is Gevurah, right? In contradistinction to what? Kesef. Kesef is chesed, right? And zav is Gevurah. We've had that in the past. And so zav is connected to Gevurah, but the Rebbe brings a pasuk for that. Umitzafain zav yasa. Now that we said that safain is associated with Gevurah and zav is Gevurah, so zav is going to be a reference to zivug. Because tzafan is zivug, tzafan is zav is zivug. V'zeh, so that's pshat in the pasuk. Tayrei zahav nasalach. You want to make necklaces of gold. You want to bring about into your life the concept of zivugin. It's a rusa de zivugin, to awaken the zivug, which in this context is the permutation between the letters. Otherwise, the letters just stand on their own. There's no connection between them, and letters do not string together to make a word, right? It's just letters if you just have letters. But once you put vowels, you see how every letter leads into the next. All right, you're able to see how the letters are able to combine. That's called zivug. So we're trying to produce zivug. To be able to bring about something in reality. So the pasuk continues, it can only be al yedei, and it says im nekudas hakesef. When we bring nekudas hakesef, when our yearning and our holy desire brings about vowels, so to speak, for the letters of reality, then Torah Zav Nasalach. Then Zav enters the picture. Zav is Gevurah, Gevurah is Zivug. The letters are able to combine, and it's able to bring about actual things in our reality. Because Eilem Shem Tnua Al Yedei Nekudas, because like we said, the letters only have movement because of the vowel Shenas Al Yedei Kisufin, which is produced on account of the yearning. Vezeu, and this goes back to what we said earlier. If the Rav is compared to a Malach Hashem Tzavakais, as I bevadai Chesed va'ava Miskala, that's going to reveal Chesed va'ava, because the Rav will have the inyan of Tzaddik. And Tzaddik, like we said, is Brisila, that's Avram Avinu Midas HaChesed. And we had said that whenever you have Brisila, you also have Bris Tata. It's included in there. And so then when you have a Rav who's the inyan of Tzaddik, so then Chesed and Avar Miskala, all that comes forth is love. All that comes forth is kindness, and that awakens yearning in the ones who are listening to the Torah of the Tzaddik, Sheim HaNekudas, which is the vowel points, as a Torah Yivakshu Mipihu. Then you can seek Torah. You know why? Because then the letters will have been bound together on account of the Nekudas, because every word that the Tzaddik speaks is Malei Hishtokukus, is full of yearning for Hashem and a desire to do tshuva and the ability to awaken others to do tshuva. Now it's not just isolated letters that don't connect, of art here, of art there, of art Torah. It's deeper than that. It wakes people up. It's a subtle distinction, but it's a different thing. It really, really moves people. It transforms people. It isn't just nice religious entertainment. It really moves people. It mamish gets people to think about their life. It mamish gets people to change, to transform, and that's the whole goal of Torah. So in Arav doim l'malach Hashem tzavakos, which means the inyan of tzaddik. Tzaddik is the inyan of chesed. Then Torah yivakshem mipiu. Then there's Torah, real Torah. As I oisias haTorah ba'atzman mevakshem imenu sheyidabrosam. So much so that the words of Torah are begging the tzaddik, please speak me, because when you speak me, it's different than when others speak. Because when you speak, it helps people change. To bring life and soul into the letters and thereby into the people. And that's the remes. Torah yivakshu mipiu. The Torah itself requests that the tzaddik speak words of Torah, because on account of the hishtokukus and the kisufin that the tzaddik has to return to Hashem, he's able to bring those words of Torah to life, and the Torah doesn't remain stale, and it certainly chas v'shalom doesn't remain right sam maves. Right, where the Torah, the Gemara tells us, can become sam maves, right, where it's not moving. No, it's the bechina of sam chayim, because tzaddik be'emunasai yichye, and the Torah that he speaks is a Torah of life. It's a Torah of movement. It's a Torah that motivates. It's a lebedik Torah. It doesn't just remain what it is. It's okay. Says there the Gerevai Zayin Vidan, a person should know shaloi daila adam b'shtokukus b'lei bilvad. It's not enough to have yearning in one's heart. A person needs to express his or her yearning for Hashem through their mouth, through their lips. And this is the whole reason that we have tefillah. Tefillah is an opportunity to express that yearning. When a person has a shtokukus just in their heart, but they don't speak it out, that brings about life and nekudas, movement, zivug between letters, only b'koyach, in potential. But when a person speaks out their yearning in espodidus, a person speaks out their yearning in tefillah, as I nasa nefesh b'poyal, that actually manifests the nefesh. The bechina of what we say in the morning, nafshenu chiksal Hashem, ezreinu magnenu hu. Right, we say these words. That's an expression of our kisufin. Now a person can just mutter them, right, or a person can stop, and a person can really get in touch with that part of them that's actually yearning for Hashem. And who's not yearning for Hashem? Even somebody who's not yearning, but a person's yearning to yearn, that's also yearning. Every person wants something, right? And if we don't want anything, then we want to want something. So channel that into these words. Then when we say the words, it's a whole different world. as I nasa nefesh b'payal, that actually enlivens the words, that brings them to life. They're able to do a pu'ula in this world. Ki ikar maitzah nefesh mipiv, because the ultimate expression of one's soul is through the mouth. Daika b'bechinas, the pasuk in SHIURIM, nafshi yatsa b'dabroi. My soul emerged b'dabroi with his words. O b'shvil zeh Torah yivakshu mi pihu. It has to be mi pihu, not stam that the tzaddik should think words of Torah in his heart. He has to speak out the words, because when he thinks it in his heart, it's just chiyas b'payal. When he speaks it out with his mouth, it becomes chiyas b'payal. That's mi pihu daika. V'zet targum shel, and that's pshat in the pasuk in Bereshis. Vayihi Adam lenefesh chaya, as everybody knows. Adam became a nefesh chaya, a living soul. What's the targum? L'ruach mimalala, a speaking spirit. Mimalel comes from the word milah, right? A word, mal. Ki ikra nefesh me'adibor, because the primary nefesh in the world comes from dibor. L'ruach mimalala. That's how we bring life into our words, into our yearnings rather, or allow our yearning to bring life into the letters of reality. Got to speak it out. Very, very important to speak out the hishtokukus. And a person should have this in mind when they're davening or when they're saying hispodados, this nekuda, nafshi yatsa bedabre. Right? We're trying to bring nefesh, life, into the letters of reality. Okay. Eisches. That's right. Says the Eliga Eisches, V'zehu yesh hevel she'nasa la'aretz, yesh hevel she'nasa la'aretz. Shlomo HaMelech says there's an absurdity that happens upon the earth, and it continues and says that there are tzaddikim shemagia leim k'maiser Yishayim. There are tzaddikim who Hashem seems to be manhig with their life in the way that you'd expect a Rasha to deserve. And then there are Rishayim, Shemagia Leim, Kamaisi Tzadikim. Then you have wicked people that prosper, right? And that's the age-old question. How is it that the righteous suffer and the wicked prosper? And that's Yesh Hevel Ashanas Ala Aretz. Says the Rebbe, Zeh B'chinas Gilgul Nefashos. This is the aspect in a certain way of Gilgul Nefashos, which doesn't in this context mean what it usually means, which is that after a person leaves the world, Chas v'shalom, the worst thing that could happen, their neshama is migugal. You imagine coming back to this world, and who wants that, right? The most terrible thing. Rabbi Nachman told Reb Nassan, if you refuse and say, finish whatever tikkun you have to finish with me up here, just don't send me back down, they'll listen. He told Reb Nassan, b'shum panav ha'ofen, do not allow them to be megalgal you back down, because who knows if the second time you'll succeed. See, he says, Rabbi Nachman told Reb Nassan, if for this alone you came to learn Tyrus Rabbi Nachman just to know this, very, very, very much to remember. After 120, a person goes up to Shemayim, tell them to finish everything they need to finish up there. Just don't be sent back here. And Rabbi Nachman told Reb Nassan, you can do that. Most people don't know you can do that. But if you're misakesh, you refuse, then okay, whatever tikkun needs to be done, but it will be better than coming back down here. Okay? But so that's usually what we think gilgul means. Over here it means something else. Kisha adam mishtoikek le'ezed davar. When a person yearns for something, umoitzi hishtoikekuse achar kach behebel piv kanal, and then, like we just mentioned, they speak out their yearning with their words, azay nasa nefesh. Then a nefesh is created, like we said. This ruach that is being spoken now, it travels through the air. And in some form, whether it's metaphysically, spiritually, whether it's practically, a person hears somebody else's yearning, a person is motivated by someone else's motivation, however you want to interpret this, it reaches someone else. And that will awaken someone else with this chukka. That's called gilgul nefashos. The nefesh that you create is megalgal. It has wings, and it can impact somebody else. Ulefia chukka, lefia nefesh, lefia ruach memala, kenisara adam. And that goes both ways. Either we can speak out holy visions, yearning to get closer to Hashem, and through that it can impact someone else because the nefesh now is born into the world. You brought into reality a brand new ishtoku because that wasn't there before. It may have been there before, but it was bekoyach. It was only hidden inside your inner world. When you're mitzi bepayal, now it's out there on the internet. Let's say now it's out there on in the air in the world. We actually had something similar, if you remember, in Torah Yud Zayin when we spoke about Gerim, right, and about cleansing the air with Ava so that holy words can travel and find their way into their Sfarim. And that's how Gerim are Nisgayer, because they find words of truth within their own Sfarim and they say this came from the Yidden. So this is what happens. If the tshuka comes from a person who's a tzaddik and finds its way to a rasha, it will wake the rasha up. This is bechinas, the pasuk. Bechinas yesh rishayim. That's the continuation of that pasuk. Shemagia aleihem kemaisei tzadikim. There are rishayim. Not that Hashem is manhig their lives like He should be manhig at Tzaddik's life. That's what it means al pi pshat. But the Rebbe says it means there are rishayim that on the account of the tzaddikim speaking out their hishtokukas for kedusha, the nekudas hakesef, the desire to come close to Hashem, shemagia aleihem to the rishayim k'maaseh tzaddikim, where the tzaddik's words enter their heart and mind, and they have a hirat tshuva. Bave'im lahapech, the opposite could also be true. A rasha could speak words, channel his soros into the world, and that can come to a tzaddik and be mevalbel them. So that would be the flip. Yesh tzaddikim shemagia aleim k'maaseh harishayim. V'hakol nas al yidei hevel piv. Everything is on account of the words that a person speaks, which always communicates air. That's hevel piv. And so that's what the pasuk said in the beginning. Yesh hevel shenaseh ba'aretz. All right, there is a hevel, which is the breath. That's the result of a person speaking words. Asher yesh tzadikim yesh rishayim shemagia leim k'maaseh tzadikim. That on account of this hevel, there are rishayim who are going to be impacted by holy desires that come out of the words of the tzadikim. V'yesh tzadikim shemagia leim k'maaseh rishayim. On account of this hevel, which he's learning al pi pshat, not vanity or absurdity, right? He's learning pshat. Hevel means breath. On account of the words that are spoken by tzaddikim, Rishayim have a tshuva. On account of the words spoken by Rishayim, chas v'shalom tzaddikim could have a negative machshava ra. The akol nasa, right? So we turn the page. V'akol nasa, ayidei hahevel piv. Everything is on account of the breath of the mouth. Shia nefesh, which is the concept of nefesh. Kizeh yidua akol lakol, because this is known to everybody. Sheikra dibur hu. That the primary dibur is sheklei hadibur makin ba'avir. It all has to do with sound waves. It also has to do with air. And that breath, right, or that word that's spoken will impact the next air, so to speak, and he's describing sound waves, right? Until sound travels all the way through the air, through space, until it's able to reach their friend, and the oisias and the communication of what those letters mean and what they're communicating, especially if they're communicating authentic feelings, true kisufin. It impacts the friend. That's the bechin of gilgul nefesh. So souls are being incarnated all the time through dibur. Every person's dibur is impacting everybody else. And so the whole humanity really, especially now with social media, can type one thing in one place and it impacts how many. That's gilgul nefesh. Now a chelik of your nefesh was nisgalgal into all of those other people. And dibur, you have to be so careful because dibur can change people, can really impact people. Both l'ra, but also, Baruch Hashem, also l'tayv.
Piv can be understood as pivav. Because there's six nekudos.
Again?
There's 6 nekudos, 6 helpers.
Beautiful. Gewaldig. Okay, ice test. Umishu b'madrigas Avram, a person who's the madrig of Avram Avinu and a bechinas Baal Nefesh, a person who's a Baal Nefesh, like Avram Avinu, a spiritual person, a person who's the cluster of midas, kedusha, emunah, chiyus, everything that Avram represents. Obviously, it has to be connected to eating. The kedusha sachila that they're eating is a bechina of lechem hapanim, bread that has a face, bread that is not seen only and related to as an object, but as a subject, like we learned in a previous Torah. Food that has dignity and is engaged as such, instead of just much like last week's parsha, right? Esav, haliteini nom, and adam azeh. That lentil soup had no face to Esav. He wanted to just devour it. He didn't interact with it. He didn't respect it. It wasn't lechem hapanim. Lechem hapanim is food with a face. And that's why Lechem HaPanim is in the Beis HaMikdash on the Shulchan, because the Beis HaMikdash is supposed to represent the light of how reality is meant to be engaged with in the proper way. So the Beis HaMikdash has to have holy food, because it's supposed to teach us how to engage with food. How do you engage with food? Lechem HaPanim. And Avram Avinu had that. Bebechinas his halech lefanai. Walk before me. That's what it means. Al pi pshat. But the Rebbe said his halech bechinas raglin bechinas parnasasai. Regel, walking, is a concept of parnasa bechinas v'asa yukum asher beragleihem, and all of the yukum, all of the property asher beragleihem, which al pi pshat means that was accompanying them, right? But Rashi said, Chazal say, this is a reference to a person's parnasa. So his salech, which means to walk, is a concept of regel, and regel is parnasa, right? Their property. So that's food, that's sustenance. So by Avram Avinu it says his halech lefanai. His halech is his parnasa, which is his food. Lefanai, what's lefanai? It's like saying lechem hapanim. His halech, lechem. Lefanai is lechem hapanim. His halech lefanai shenasa mehem chinas panim. Everything that Avram engages with is so real, is so alive, that it has a face. And this is what it says in Shmuel Aleph. They were swapping out one lechem hapanim for the other. Lechem cham biyomi lakchai. Warm bread on the day that they take it off to replace it. We find that the lechem hapanim was fresh, it was hot, it was warm. Hainu lechem hapanim im lechem cham. The bread is warm bread, dargan da Avram. And this is the level of Avram Avinu, because Avram Avinu is the midah of chesed. Chesed is warmth. Ava is warmth. Gevurah is cold, kriras. That's why it says by Avram Avinu, shu bechinas kechoim hayai. Because Avram is the inyan of lechem hapanim. Avram Avinu is the inyan of, on account of being the tzaddik, and therefore being mashlim the brachas. Avram Avinu is the inyan of emunah, roish l'ma'aminim, which is the inyan of Shabbos Kodesh, which is the shemesh, kechayim hayayim. That was shemesh, tzedakah, right? Shemesh b'Shabbos, tzedakah la'aniyah. And that represented Shabbos, which is the emunah that rectifies and completes the different various brachas, so that manifests the fullest flow of chesed, and that's what Avram Avinu is. On account of him being the tzaddik, his emunah is complete, memela his chayis is complete, chiyas. And therefore Avram Avinu's madrigas kechayim hayoim, because it's the inyan of the taking the shemesh out of the nartik, right, which is the bechina, like we're going to learn of la'asad lavai, which is Shabbos, which is me'ein alam haba, and that's why on Shabbos there's an inyan of shemesh b'Shabbos, but that's the concept of emunah, where the Makar is revealed and all the planets are illuminated, all the stars are illuminated. Memela Avram's midah is kechayim hayayim, and Memela the lechem hapanim, which is Avram's midah, is cham, lechem cham. Va'az kol ha'akum v'chol ha'koichabim ha'mazal shem tachteim kulam im tarchem ishvol zeh ish. When a person lives in that mindset, they live with the realization that everything that's happening around me is happening for me, not against me, and not irrelevant for me. That's what it means, lechem hapanim. All of reality It has a meaning, everything. He realizes that Bishvili Nivra Ha'olam, everything that is operating mamish. And each one of us could say that for me. And like we learned in Torah Dalet or Hay. Second, it was Torah Hay. Like we learned in the beginning of Torah Hay, that when a person mamish lives in that consciousness of ha'olam nivra b'shvili, it immediately translates into responsibility, because it's my world. And everything that I engage with is supportive of the way that I'm living my life. If I'm living my life in a negative way, I'm destroying the whole world. Like the Gemara tells us in Kedushin. Person does one ma'isa, it's machriya the whole world to one side or to the other side. The Rambam paskins that la'alacha. Hilchos Tshuva. One thing a person does, change the whole reality. Lahapech. If I choose to take care of reality, and I choose to live with holy yearning, with a holy consciousness, and I elevate the whole entire world, and that's my responsibility. That's how an Avram Avinu person lives. He realizes everything is for him. Pasuk in Tehillim, sit to my right hand. What's the right hand? Is the Bechina of Avram. That's the Midah of Chesed. Until you'll put your feet on your enemy. You'll realize that everything is supporting you. Everything. Not just the good things in your life, even the negative things in your life is there for you. It doesn't just mean pshat. It means you'll beat all your enemies and you'll put your feet on them. Deeper. You realize all the raz kisilatayv. You realize everything that is happening is not happening to you, it's happening for you. That's Avram Avinu. Bebechinas shevli yamina bechinas Avram. Everything in reality is working to sustain you. Not what we think it means at a more global level, everyone will be our servants. It's much deeper than that, much. It means you'll come to the realization that everything is working for you, even the forces that look like they're working against you. Kenegdai, Ezer Kenegdai. Bebechinas lachmeinu heim sartzila me'aleya. The concept of what they said going into the Eretz Yisrael, so they came back, and Kalev and Yeshua, right, were telling the people, don't listen to the Meraglim. No, we can conquer the land. Lachmeinu heim. They are our bread. Sart sila me'aleim. Their cell, their shadow will be taken away from them. What a strange pasuk. What's the reference here? What's the metaphor? Lachmeinu heim. They are our bread. Right? So obviously a person eats bread. It means we'll devour them. Right? But what's the deeper meaning? So the Rebbe says, Ki marechama muka menatzel. The Gemara tells us about Baba Basar with regard to tsaras, marachama amuka menatzel. A patch of sunlight looks deeper than a shadow. There's something, it gives the mirage of depth, the illusion of depth. So says the Rebbe, okay, chama b'chinas k'chayim hayoy b'chinas lechem cham lechem HaPanim. Chama is the aspect of daylight, the sun, warmth. Avram Avinu, Lechem HaPanim, Lechem Cham. Aval k'shesart silam, when the shadow is removed, azaynis alav and isura maracham adargada Avram. The removal of the shadow is the revelation of sunlight. And that's Avram Avinu. V'heim nishpalim tachtav bebechinas ad ashes hovecha adoim l'raglecha. And that's what they were saying in the pasuk. Sart sila me'aleim. When the shadow is removed, what shines then? Sun. Sun is the madrega of Avram Avinu. Kechayim hayayim. Avram Avinu is the inyan and that's the inyan of Lechem HaPanim, which is Lechem Cham. And that's a salich lefanai. Memela, there's a connection between bread, Lechem HaPanim, and sunlight through Avram Avinu. Because Avram Avinu is a bechina of Kechayim Hayayim, and Chayim is a connection with Lechem HaPanim, which is Lechem Cham. Memela, in this pasuk, where they're trying to convince Klal Yisrael, we can go to Eretz Yisrael. There are giants there. Everybody's burying their dead there. Don't you realize that the only reason they were burying their dead is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mamish working on our behalf? Can't you see how everything is working for us, not against us? This is the hashkafa of Yeshu and Kalev. That's what they were telling them. Lachmeinu hein, lechem hapanim. Sart sila me'aleim. The sun is shining. Shavli yamini. When a person's plugged into the right side, ad ashis oivecha hadoim l'raglecha. That's what they were saying. Ve'im nishpalim tachtav b'bechinas ad ashis oivecha hadoim l'raglecha. V'zeu esalich lefanai v'yesam. And that's what it says by Abraham Avinu, esalich lefanai, which is esalich lefanai means lechem hapanim, because esalich is parnasa, right? Like we said, raglayim, the inyan of yukum, kesef, lechem, and lefanai is panim. V'heyeh samim bebechinas tamim tia im Hashem alekecha shaloi titzarech lidrosh achar kochavim u'mazalos. You won't need to take a look at nature as if it's real. You'll realize everything is Hashem. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is mamish manipulating every single aspect of the whole created world just for my benefit. And I could just turn to Hashem. I don't have to turn to any intermediary, anything in between. Tamim tiyeh Hashem alekecha. That's the meat of Avram Avinu. Why? Because it's halach lefanai. Because he has the consciousness of lechem hapanim, lechem cham, the inyan of chesed, which is the inyan of bris, which is the inyan of emunah. Kisiyah lamala mehem. We know, right? Kadosh Baruch Hu v'yetzeh achutza v'imrabet hashamayma. Right? What does Rashi say there? He took him out. He said, "Say me'astigninu shalcha. Go out from your astrology." Avram Avinu is beyond the stars. Avram Avinu is not stuck within factors that seem to be controlling him. All the factors are under his control.
He's
right?
a superstar.
Gewalt. He is the superstar. Yes, Gevaldik. V'zeu v'lo yeira es panei Hashem reika. So now we get back to the Shalosh Regalim, because the Shalosh Regalim we had mentioned in Torah Lamed. The Shalosh Regalim was how you bring chayas into your malchus. Remember we learned over there? And that was the R Panim. Shalosh pa'amim b'shana yira kol zechurcha es pnei Hashem. And that was Torah Lamed. So Lamed and Lamed Aleph are extremely connected, like all the Torahs are. Says the Rebbe, that's the bechina of the Shalosh Regalim. V'zeu lo yira'es penei Hashem reikam b'regalim. This is the aspect of the Shalosh Regalim. Regalim is connected to the penei Hashem. What's regalim? Raglayim. What's raglayim? Is salich lefanai, right? Is salich. That's yikum. That's parnasa. Regalim. Penei Hashem. Is salich lefanai. She'aznes galin pnei Hashem. By the regalim, then the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu working within nature is revealed. Bebechinas panim, the aspect of the ara panim. Ubezeh shekol echad mevi oilos re'iyah. Every person brings their oilos migiyasish mizyagea kol hashana. And a person works hard, and a person is able to buy animals, and a person is able to bring their carbon 3 times a year. This elevates a person's all their lechem, all of their parnasa b'bechinas lechem hapanim, and it elevates their lechem into the bechin of lechem hapanim. This is what HaKadosh Baruch Hu answered Moshe when Moshe was asking for forgiveness on behalf of Klal Yisrael after the Chetei Egel. He said, "Pana yelechu v'ani chaysilach." My panai, my countenance will travel, and it will put you to rest. Ki Moshe bikesh kapara. Moshe is asking for kapara. Ve'hishavlai panai yelechu. Panai yelechu is his salich lefanai. Is the bechin of shalosh pa'amim b'shana, which is shalosh regalim yira kol zechurcha es pnei adan Hashem, the bechin of lechem hapanim. Panai yelechu sheyisaknu bechinas regalim. Raglin bebechinas panim azay yiskapar lehem. That will be mechaper for them. Ma kesher. Why is that connected to kapara? Because Chazal say the Gemara Chagiga ki shulchan daim lemizbeach shemechaper. Just like the mizbeach is mechaper on Klal Yisrael, so is shulchan shel adam mechaper on a person. Memele, in the context of kapara, HaKadosh Baruch Hu makes reference to the Lechem HaPanim. How does he make reference to Lechem HaPanim? Because he says, Panai Yelechu. Panai is the Indian of Panim. Yelechu is Raglayim. Raglayim is a bechina of property, and that's Parnasa. Panai Yelechu v'anichaisilach. Because the Shulchan is Mechaper K'mizbeach. V'zeo, and the Gemara says, Pasach B'mizbeach v'siyim zeh ha-Shulchan shel Bnei Hashem. When Yecheskel is having his vision, he opens up with a vision of the Mizbeach. He closes with Zeh HaShulchan, and from there, Chazal Darshan, that we know from there that just like the Mizbeach is Mechaper, Shulchan Shel Adam is Mechaper like a Mizbeach. So in the context of Moshe Rabbeinu asking for Kapara and Klal Yisrael, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to make reference to the Shulchan, which is the Bechin of Lechem HaPanim. Pana Yelechu, which is Lechem HaPanim, the Bechin of Avram Avinu, his Halach Lefanev Yasamim, who is the revelation of Chesed, because he's the Indian of Bris, and the Indian of Emunah, and the Indian of Chias, and the Indian of Nefesh. Because Chesed Mizgala Mipu Madam.
He used to bring out the Lechem HaPanim on Yom Tovim, Shalosh Regalim. He was sure that it's fresh.
Kechayim Hayom. Lefnei Daik Daika B'Chinas Panim Azay Mischaper La'asid Iskayim, and at the end of days, the pasuk is going to be fulfilled. V'La Yekanev Ayid Marecha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will no longer be winged, meaning Hashem will no longer be hidden. Marechas means your teacher. It's a reference to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is currently masked and hiding. And the pasuk continues, V'Hayu Einecha Royes Es Merecha. Your eyes will be able to perceive your teacher. And that will be the greatest revelation, to realize that Hashem was really our teacher. And that all of life was a curriculum. Hashem is giving us the curriculum of this human experience. He's trying to teach us something. It's all lessons. A whole life is just to collect lessons. Some people collect stamps. Some people collect coins. An Avram Avinu person, a Yaakov Avinu person collects lessons. That's right. He came with all of his days, all of his experiences. Zakein Baba Yamin. Zakana Chachma. Right? He acquired the knowledge of his days. So that will be revealed. Our eyes will see, oh my gosh, es moirecha. It was all to teach me something. I came here to learn something. It was all just an experience of an immersive curriculum. Because then the panim will be revealed. Now Hashem's face is hidden b'derech teva. This is also connected to the Bris Ilah and the Bris Tata, Avram and Eliezer, because we learned in Yud Aleph that we reviewed last week when we were up to that part of the Torah, where we learned where the Bris Ilah is Kabbalah and the Bris Tata is Halacha. The Bris Ilah is HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that's the Bechin of Shabbos Kodesh. Bris Tata is the Malach Matat Sar Ha Panim, that's the 6 days of the week. So the whole thing is connected. In the 6 days of the week, which is Bechina Klalias of the Sheishes Halafim Shana, Hashem's face is Nislabish and Teva. That's the Malach Matat. That's the 6 days of the week. Kasher Pasal Tametar Mutar Aser. That's the Yesod that separates Bris Tata Eliezer between the Mayan. What was it? The Mayan Dachyan, the Mayan Mesavin, the pure waters and the impure waters. That's the 6 days of the week. That's the Bechin of Halacha. That's the Bechin of Shemiras Iser V'Heter. The Bris Ilah is the Bechin of Shabbos Kodesh. The Aleph Hashvi, where V'Lo Yikanef Ayin Marecha. Over there is revealed it was always only about Kedusha. All there is holy waters, upper waters, lower waters. Ki achshav pnei Hashem muster b'derech hateva b'anhagas hamazalois. Now HaKadosh Baruch Hu's hanhaga of the world is within the seder of teva, which is ultimately guided by the mazalois. B'bechinas v'histarti panai mehem v'hayu le'echa. I will hide my face from them, and they will be v'hayu le'echa. They will be eaten. They will be devoured. The Rebbe says, look at this pasuk. This is a reference to the opposite of Lechem HaPanim. Because this is Lechem, v'hayu le'echol, but v'histarti panemehem. V'achshav mara hachama amuka min silam. Now the vision of the sunlight is deeper than the shade. The shade is covering it. Like Yeshayahu says, the sound of the beating wings. Tzil is tzel. Knafayim. Now Hashem is kanif moirecha. Hashem is hidden, and that's connected to tzel. The sunlight of Hashem's presence is not revealed in the utmost. Hashem is hidden. Hashem is shielded. There's the inyan of the shadow. That's the shadow that conceals the light of the sun. Because the light of the sun is not revealed in its fullest. And that's the aspect of la'asid lavai. Hashem will remove the chamim in artika. That's the aspect of shemesh b'shabes takalanim. That's the aspect of Avraham Avinu was sitting on the third day from what? From his mila kechoim hayoim. Because it's daikat sadik be'emunah yichya. What's emunah? Shabbos. Shabbos is the Aleph Hashvi. Shabbos is that time of Malay Kanaf Oid Marecha, which is the bechina of the removal of the mask of the Malach Matat, which is the 6 days of the week, and the mask of a world where it seems that there's good and evil, and the revelation of Yemahu Yashem Echad U'Shmai Echad, like Hashem Shemarcham Alatayv, Kach Mavarcham Alara, and La'asad Love it, we're going to say Kuli Atayv Ametiv. The Ein Ze'el Amar Chama. Maradaika. Right now, there's just the vision of a Chama, but it's not really the Chama. Because it's hidden behind shade, it's hidden behind wings, it's hidden behind masks. That the sun will shine for you, where the sun will shine in all of its fullness. The shemesh will be revealed. And all of the marechet and the mazalos will be completely nullified by that, will be illuminated by the gilui of the Makar HaChayim. Azayiskayim umarpe bichnafel. Umarpe bichnafel doesn't mean it'll be healing in its wings. It means the illness was because of the wings. The illness was because HaKadosh Baruch Hu was concealed by the masks. Umarpe bichnafel, when that shemesh is revealed, when that shemesh of Shabbos, when that shemesh of the Dar Shvi, of the Aleph Hashvi, when that shemesh of the life of Avraham Avinu, of Tzaddik, Bris, Be'emunasai, the fullest expression of Emunah, Yichya, with the chayis of Lechem HaPanim, and all the brachas that flow down into a person's life who's living with this awareness, then Umar Bebeknafel, all the masks, that illness of reality masking Hashem will all be healed. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it'll just be Kedusha, Kedusha, Kedusha. And everything else will be Nizbatel. Terech Hadasha Mi'iti Teitzei. And then a new reality will be revealed where there won't be the system of halacha in the same way, because there won't be Isser, there won't be any Ra. There won't be, Tameh and Pasal and Aser, right? All there will be is just what's called Zivuga B'Tadira of Chachma and Bina. There will no longer be this reality of Malchus, which sometimes is in Yichud with Kuchabrichu, sometimes isn't, right? That's our reality. But in the higher realms, Chachma and Bina are Zivug B'Tadira. Everything is there. In the horizontal framework, so to speak, Chachma and Bina, in that place there's always Zivug. It's just when it turns to this vertical reality of Kuchabrichu and Malchus, so sometimes yeah, sometimes not, and that's Bris Tata. Bris Yilah is the Mayin Yilah and Mayin Tata, and is Chachma and Bina, right, which are completely integrated. Again, extremely, it's a ton of material, very, very hard to really hold it all easily. As Hashem, we'll continue. Reb Nassim will take over tomorrow, and then Reb Nassim will take the whole Torah, flesh it out, switch around the order, and make it hopefully a little bit more clear. But Shreinu should be zeicha to see it. I think it's already happening slowly but surely.